everyone. I'm Samira Daswani, the host of the podcast, The Patient from Hell. I have someone who's been on this show before. Megan Claire is back with us. I am so excited. Thank you for coming back.
Thank you for asking me back. How awesome is that?
I think your story has to be told again and again, different aspects of it. So, you don't seem to have had the best day. Should we start there?
Well, you know what? I'm ending the day on a high note doing this with you.
Thank
Like,
you.
you know, because anytime someone feels that I've made an impact, because sometimes you don't realize how big of an impact you make on people. And I recently had a friend tell me, okay, you need to look back on everything you have done thus far because sometimes you don't feel like you're doing enough. And I was like, oh, okay. All right. Well, when you put it that way.
I love it. Oh, thank you. I feel very now I feel pressured by the way, but
No pressure.
okay, so the last time we had done an episode, I think you were just going into an appointment, if I remember right.
Yes. So, I am officially 9 years in a relationship with no evidence of disease. Ned. Ned is my long term boyfriend. And so that's what was happening the last time we talked. And then also my mother at the same time, because I'm a caregiver for my mother. No, we do not live together. She always wants to make sure I say that. She's very sharp, very sharp. But also getting more news that her cancer is progressing and they don't really know what else to do, And so it's like I get that excitement of and relief of wow, I'm still Ned. That's great, 9 years. That's a lot, that's good.
Really good.
Yet my mother's progressing and that kind of stress, that anticipatory stress and grief that is already happening, it made me feel some kind of way, and I think I can't be the only adult child whose parent has cancer like right now or has like another illness that requires sometimes taking them to doctor appointments, etc. But it does feel like I'm the only one sometimes.
You're not the only one. I can validate that for you. Definitely validate that. But I think it's a lot.
Yeah.
And I think you said something right now that struck me. You feel something.
Yeah.
Can you talk about this something?
So I guess for me, I'm an only child. And so it's like, okay, I don't ever want anything to happen to me while my mother is still alive because I just know that would just absolutely break her. My parents have been divorced for a million years, it feels like, and I don't have any contact on my father's side. My mother, like, we are super close, very different in personalities, but we are super close, And the thought of her not being around in say 3 to 5 years. I mean, it's not like they've given her an expiration date. She does not know when she's going to expire. But just the thought of like, well, what's going to happen? Like, who's going to be there for me? Like I really have started to panic and have a lot of anxiety around that. Because I wasn't prepared, because I mean, sometimes you just think your parents are going to live forever. And I'm actually now physically seeing the toll of dealing with this blood cancer that she's had for, gosh, over 20 years now. And it started out as one type, and now it's, progressed into another type. And I'm just seeing that progression not only of her lab work, but externally as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why it makes me feel some type of way, because we are so close. I mean, I call her every single day, usually after work or after I'm, if I have to do something in the advocacy space, like we talk all the time. And I save all the voicemails that are like really speak to me, and I keep telling myself, like, okay, I have to do that. And that's why I feel like some type of way, because I don't want her to die. I
Yeah.
mean, I just have to say the word die.
Yeah.
But also, I know that that's coming. I mean, hopefully, I'd love it, for her to be around for another 20 years. But I'm also seeing how much she's suffering, the pain that she's in. The fatigue is just overwhelming for her, and she's such a brilliant, like, intellect, like
Yeah.
this intellectual mind, and so that is still very sharp, and it's like her body can't keep up with that, and that's hard to see. And then being an only child, I don't have a brother or sister to share that load with me.
Oh, I have goosebumps. Huh. Do you and your mom talk about the D word?
Yes, okay. I mean, we talk about death all the time because my grandfather, her father, was a mortician. So I mean, death has always been talked about in the family.
Wow.
Yes, back in the day, Chase Funeral Home in St. Augustine, Florida, um, and yeah, and my maternal grandmother, my mother's mother, was a registered nurse, so she helped you in life, and he helps you in death. Um, But
That's
as it relates to her, when we do start to talk about it, like I start to freak out and I'm like, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. But she has let me know, like we've gone to our safety deposit box. She was like, okay, everything I want is in here. Here's the will. Like because she knows I'm going to panic and not know what to do. And then for Christmas, though, I will say I got her these cards. It's like tell your story. And I was like, look, I said, Mother, I said, I know you hate to be on camera. She does not like to be on camera. And I don't know why. She's gorgeous. I said, but at least let me get the audio. I said, because it's like, I want to know more about my mother. And I don't know necessarily the questions to ask, like about, and what I like about these cards is it's about like like when you were a child, when you were like a teen or, young adult, if you were in college, or what did you do in that time? And then like your present time. And so she was so stoked when she got that. And so we started doing that, and I recorded like an hour's worth. And she was so excited. Like I was like, okay, I said, I'm interviewing you now, and I have the questions, and she can't wait for us to get together to like go through the next half of them. And it's like now I've got more of her story
Yeah.
that I can keep with me in her voice.
Yeah. Oh my god. Okay, off what you recorded. Oh, I have so many questions for you. I sent you a script and I was like, yeah, we're not even we're not even in the realm of following anything I sent you, which is amazing. Oh, but so many questions. Okay. So of all the recordings that you've done so far, what stood out?
What stood out to me is that she had a lot more joy than I thought she did. Like in my mind, my mother came out as an adult. Like when she was born, she was already an adult. Um, you know, and to just hear like the joy she had of like as a kid, and like her best friend as a kid, and that she did wear the she would say I had bobby socks on, and I liked poodle skirts, and when we danced we had like the nuns have the ruler to keep us separate, like just hearing like her joy in talking about these questions that really like made her think. And that's what I liked about it too, is like she would pause, like she'd be like, and was really like thinking about the answer, because she was like, wow, I haven't thought about that in years. And she's like, oh my gosh. And then we'd like go off on a tangent from that one question, and just seeing like her face light up. So I'm so bummed that she won't let me do video. I'm gonna try and sneak it in some kind of way, but it's just, there's a lot more joy. Like, of course she was very serious.
Yeah.
After a divorce, you're raising a child who had a lot of health problems because I was born premature, and but she's also has a great sense of humor, and like I really get to see more of that. And I was like, so that's where I get more of my quirkiness, more than I thought, you know?
What is a bobby sock?
I know, right? So I had to ask that same question. So it's
Okay,
like,
go ahead.
they're like little socks, and you would fold them down. They have like little lace on the like outside. Yeah, like I guess like when you wear like a baby doll dress, like and you have like the Mary Janes, like the little white socks. That's what it would look like, but they had like little lace.
There was something else you said about a skirt. What? Poodle skirt?
I know. Oh my gosh. So now it's like, now I know why she was so excited when I was in the musical Grease, and when I was a cherry blossom princess, because we got to wear poodle skirts, and she loved wearing poodle skirts, and they're like these skirts that have like a lot of crinoline underneath them, so they'd be like big, and you'd wear like a little cardigan with like your initial or something. Like it was just so cute. And I had a pink one, and then I had like, it was almost like a plum colored one when I was in the musical Grease as a 12-year-old. It was just so like, she was just have so much joy around that. And it's like, I was starting to have memories flashing back of like, yeah, you really did get a kick out of that. And like, I twirl around for you. And so I didn't realize that that was like taking her back in time as well.
Wow, that's so cool. Huh. Okay. Okay. Hard tangent. Sorry, but semi-related, potentially sensitive.
Mhm.
So feel free not to answer
Okay.
or change the question. Up to you. Uh, how do I ask this? Okay. You know how different cultures have different understandings of death and mortality.
Hmm.
There's different associations, different family practices, different cultural practices, different religious practices.
Hmm.
If you're open to talking about it, I'd love to better understand that for you and your mom.
Well, my mother is like old school Catholic. I call myself a recovering Catholic. I'm like, all right, you put me through the private Catholic schools all my life. Like, I'm done. But yeah, she's like, no, no, you'll always be Catholic. I'm like, really, mother? Okay. Um, so we have talked about that. Like, I know she's going to want the Catholic mass. I know that she does want to be buried, not cremated. And I was like, well, I want to be cremated. Like, I mean, we have had those kind of discussions. And we, have talked about like, though she's Catholic, we are also quite spiritual, and we do believe in reincarnation. And so oftentimes she will joke with me. She's like, I'm going to come back. You're going to know it's me. And I was like, you know what? I bet so. So we often talk about that. And we also believe in like, that we get signs around us that our loved ones are still with us. Like when we see a cardinal, or, a butterfly, or like, um, the term Nana, that name was not popular when I was growing up. Because everyone called their grandma, or Mama, or whatever. And I could never find cards that said Nana. And now Nana's like everywhere, but then sometimes I don't see it, and then it just pops up at like some random store, and I'm like, oh my, okay, Nana, I know you're here. I think you'd like this. So we very much feel that our spirits are still there.
Yeah.
And we like, she can feel, and I can feel too, because we're just so close. Like when something is wrong, like we get that like sixth sense, and I will like call her and be like, "Are you all right? Just checking." You know, yeah, I'm fine. I'm like, no, I can hear it in your voice, and she does the same with me. And I think that's just being that kind of sensitive, and just being able to relate to each other in like a different realm, so to speak. But we truly do believe that our loved ones are always with us. And then when we need, really need that support or really missing them hard, that they do pop up and say, "Hey, I'm still here. I'm still here with you." And I know for her, it's going to come in a plethora of ways, but I really still want her here now to annoy me, because I'm like, I'm going to miss that. But we've always, like, I've always known her plan for when the ultimate thing happens and she does die. And again, all of that is in the safety deposit box. And I do appreciate that she has never shied away from that. It's been me that's like shied away from it. Um, but she's like, "I want to make sure that you understand my wishes." And I was like, "Got you."
I can see you. I can see that this is hard, and I appreciate you willing to be vulnerable.
Well, many people don't ask that question, and I don't think it's talked about enough. And I think when the adult child has also been through their own cancer and has stared their mortality in the face, it's a weird dynamic with your parent, because she, was a caregiver way before the my own cancer, and I didn't even understand what that really meant. And I would get mad that she wouldn't lean on me. I was like, "If I'm supposed to be a caregiver, aren't you supposed to like let me do stuff?" And she was like, "No, I can do it myself." And then when I got, my cancer, and then the fear she had for me, and then I'm having fear for her because we're going through chemo and all this stuff at the same time, and then I somehow make it to the other side. She's still ongoing, but now it's progressed, and I understand too much now. And and I think after going through cancer, not I think, I know, she did start sharing more of her lab work, and I hated that I fully understood what it meant because it's been scaring me. And every Wednesday she goes to the cancer center, and so when we talked um, uh, on Wednesday, I was like, I always call, "How'd it go? What'd they say?" And she's like, "Yeah, no change." And but the waiting room, I mean, there are so many people in there, and they always make sure to call me Dr. Chase. And like, she just loves how she's treated, because she's like, "You realize I've been going there for like almost what, 15 years now?" And it's like they really become family, the staff. And
Yeah.
the way, the way she talks about her oncologists and the PAs and the nurses and even the front desk people, like they know her. And so that's somewhat comforting, but also just like, gosh, it really shows that cancer doesn't just end for some people.
Yeah. Yeah. Huh. I think you said like three things that I was like, sorry. This is why I love having you on this podcast. I get to ask anything. Almost. Almost. You said something that I do, for what it's worth. That's one of the reasons why I'm asking the questions. I don't think people talk about it. I don't
Yeah.
think people talk about it directly. It's it's kind of a funny topic in the cancer community, right? Which
Yeah.
is uh, it's this weird mix of like, how can you be honest and deal with it, but at the same time not lose hope? Because sometimes it's not talked about because it's sort of perceived as giving up or losing hope, or there's so many reasons why. But anyway, I appreciate you willing to talk to me about it. Um, One of the things you said though was, as a cancer patient, when you have dealt with your own mortality,
Yeah.
it changes things. Can you help explain that? What does it mean to deal with your own mortality for you?
Oh, I always thought I would get cancer way later in life, because I mean, I knew I would get cancer again, you know. For those that didn't hear the previous episode, so go back and listen to that. I always knew, and I knew it would be either ovarian or cervical. That was the plan. That's what I had been monitored for since I was 16. And I was supposed to be in like my late 60s to 70s. That's when it was supposed to happen. And instead, it happens under 40. And I was not prepared for that. And I really, staring my mortality in the face, it made me realize up until that point, I had not really been living. I had simply been existing. It was just really hard. I had a tough time. I was part of that recession of like 2007 or 8 or whenever that was. And it was so hard to find a job. I was out of work for like 2 years, you know, and it was just so hard to like build myself back up, like financially and also just like career wise. It just took such a beating, and I didn't know who I was anymore. And I didn't like being in Atlanta. Like I was just like, why did I move back? I mean, it was just so many like negative things, and it really messed with my head. And then when I get this cancer diagnosis, I was like, okay, this is the wrong cancer, and this is not the age this was supposed to happen. So then I got mad again. And then when I started going through the treatments and I was having the mother load of side effects all at once, I literally thought, oh my God, I am going to die on a bed of regrets, because there were so many things I had not done. I'll just push it to the side. And it just made me so aware of time. And you can't get time back. Like, it is what it is. And, you know, though I still struggle, you know, with, gosh, I wish I had done this or that, or I should have done this. As my therapist says, don't should all over yourself. He was like, you made the best decisions you could back at that time. Now you're here. Make those decisions moving from here and staying in the present. And those moments where I really thought, I don't think I can make it to the next treatment. And I thought, oh my God, if I had a funeral, like, would anyone even come? What would they say? Like, no one even knows me. Like, I just felt very invisible.
Mm.
And then once I, made it, I was like, okay, there is no way I'm going to like, I mean, I'm sure there'll be some regrets, but it's not going to be a whole bed of regrets. And that's what I really got out of staring my mortality in the face was, okay, it's time to start really living and like trying to pursue, at least trying, the things that I truly love, that truly fuel me creatively, that I wasn't doing because I'm like, no, I gotta work, I gotta get a job, I gotta, do all these things instead of I neglected the creative part of me because, real world is not always kind.
The thing that struck me though was so many things that you say strike me. But I think the thing that struck me the most, I definitely relate, by the way, for what it's worth. But the thing that struck me that I don't think I have managed to put words to is staring at your mortality made you feel invisible. I definitely relate to that. I don't think I quite understood that though before this conversation.
Really?
Yeah, not in those words.
Mm-hmm.
Time awareness, absolutely. I very much relate. Living life, kind of in for lack of a better word, in your on more of your terms. Also, I relate. But the feeling of invisibility and how that sort of it absolutely has. I mean, it absolutely has like choice of work now and like being willing to share and work in the cancer space, like all of that, I think is sort of stems from that feeling. But I had never quite put that in words.
That is why I'm a writer. I mean, and it took me a while to put it into words too, and so I mean, I'm saying all this, that's because I've had like quite a few years of, writing to heal and being part of the AYA cancer community and finding like, others who I could really relate with. And it was only through all of that and then really digging down deep and addressing like, why is this making me so uncomfortable? Why does this not sit well? What is happening? And then I realized too, I was like, I'm not being the daughter that I need to be either.
Hmm.
I was like, as a kid, I was a very joyful person as a like little girl. I was like, what happened to that? And so I just fully embraced my quirky personality, when I go into my Southern Belle talk. My mother hates when I say y'all. She's like, it's all of you. Like I was like, I just fully embraced myself and I was like, you know what? Either love it or leave it.
I had a mentor say, he had seen me through the treatment, and he goes, "It feels like you have a chip on your shoulder post treatment." And I was like, "Huh, maybe." But I think it's the love it or leave it attitude. It's like love it or no, see
Yeah.
you later. Not worth the time almost.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like I'm intolerant of bullshit. And like I didn't realize how much I had been dealing with or compartmentalizing until after staring my mortality in the face. And I was like, oh no, I will not be disrespected anymore. I still try and speak up in the moment, but it can be hard. And I'm a very sensitive person. I'm an empath. Like I feel everything and it can be very overwhelming, but also too I'm like, no, I know my worth,
Yeah.
and it makes me sad that not everyone else seems to know it, and I feel lucky that some do know it,
Yeah.
and want to help amplify it, so thank you, you're one of those people. um, but that really came from like, I'm not going to die on a bed of regrets. I am a confident person. There was an arrogance back in the day because theater people have like arrogance, like any theater person will tell you that. Any actor in the movies and live theater, like we all have arrogance. That's just how we are, right?
Oh,
Um, but I learned to really find like my true nature,
yeah.
which is joyful and quirky.
So I have a emerging question for you.
Okay.
So it's a little bit of a funny, and you alluded to this earlier in the conversation, right? Because as you've gone through dealing with your mortality, but you're
Mm-hmm.
sitting here today grappling with your mom's, and that feels different, right?
Yeah.
Because on the one hand, given the conversation we just had, the two of us are able to have a conversation about dying, and I don't think either of us are breaking down about it. I think we've come to terms with it, maybe. I
Yeah.
wonder how and why it's different for your moms.
Because like I mean that, and that's a fair question. Like because we're talking as like friends, colleagues. Like, but this is my mother who she literally almost gave her life up for me to be born.
Yeah.
Like she was hemorrhaging to death. My father had like they're making all these crazy decisions at once. Like, do we save her? Do we save the baby? And she was like, no, you save the baby. Especially in these political times, it's really, I think that's what it is too. It's really hitting
Mhm.
home for me because I am an IVF baby. My parents tried for 8 years to get pregnant, and then during her third month she gets diagnosed with ovarian cancer, like, and so that bond is so tight. And I think there are some people that are not close with their family members or their parents, and you have to like create your own family. My mother and I are super tight, and so the thought of her
Mm.
not physically being here is just like more than I can handle, because my fear is I am going to have a complete breakdown,
Mm.
and who is going to be there to help me pick up the pieces, because I have no blood brothers or sisters, or people, because there's some people that just go by their name. And I don't have a spouse, I don't have any of that. So that's another fear too. It's like, not only of her dying, but oh my God, what's going to happen to me?
Yeah.
Who is going to be there for me?
Yeah.
And I do have some beautiful friends. Like, I have crafted a beautiful family
Hmm.
through those that I've met in the cancer space in cancer land, and some of those outside of cancer land. Some people I knew way back in the day,
Hmm.
pre-cancer, and some that I know now who were not in the cancer world. It's like, I know they'll be there, but it's like, you don't have an obligation to me to like check on me, So I think that is a fear, and I often feel like the only child left on this planet, because I'm like, where are all the rest of the only children? But I think what happens is, like, the other side of the family or whatever have, like, brothers and sisters and aunts and uncles and all that, so you have like this whole other like side of support, and I don't have that.
Yeah. Uh, Let me validate one thing for you, which is I don't think you're the only child left out there. I know quite a few actually, and quite a few survivors actually, in kind of some of both. So I don't know. I can imagine it feels that way, but I can validate that you're not the only one. But the thing that's striking me though in hearing your talk is the fear of isolation, the fear of loneliness, the fear of being abandoned, the fear of being the last one feels more debilitating than the fear of death.
Yeah, it's palpable. Which again is why I'm in therapy. Because
Hmm.
I have to. A lot of times, my therapist, he will say, "Okay, is this true? Like, is what you were thinking, is this true?" So, what he told me to do sometimes when I'm having these kind of like feelings is I write it out, and then I like leave it for a little bit, and then I come back and look at it, and it's like, okay, are you really the only child left on this planet? No, and so, but he also recognizes that I have to get things out in a way, because I've had a tendency in the past to just shove it all down, and so writing is a huge release for me. But I've been having difficulty writing, like, for me, not like professionally or anything, but like for me, and I haven't really been able to do it. But I have been doing like, okay, is this true? Okay, no, but it feels true. Um, but that loneliness, I know that there was like a study or something that came out last year, the year before, like, it's an epidemic. Like, loneliness is an epidemic, especially after COVID. I think that like really, was it shined a spotlight on loneliness when you
Yes.
had to,
Yes. Uh,
stay
the
at home.
the reason you see me go down this little tangent, not tangent, but go down this thread is prior to working now in cancer, I used to work in the mental health space.
Oh,
And you're totally right. Loneliness has been an epidemic for a long time. I think COVID-19 sort of brought it to the forefront. And sometimes I think about the cancer experience and I think about the non-cancer mental health experience. And sometimes I'm going to say something a little bit radical out there, but because cancer has a community, because there are patients who talk to each other, because there is an AYA community, we're privileged to have that. I think sometimes as cancer patients, we actually, because we're cancer patients and survivors, I think we have privilege on it in a way that someone actually doesn't. right? Because when you're dealing with mental health that's not cancer, it is truly completely invisible.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's in hearing you talk about dealing with death and dealing with loneliness and just hearing the kind of like emotional temperature on the two topics, it just struck me that I think if you're grappling with both, that's a lot. But it's one of those
Oof.
things where
Wow. You know what, Samira? I mean, again, I've never had this level of conversation like this for a podcast, and I really applaud you for asking, you know, these questions, and I'm proud of myself for saying, yeah, I'm going to talk about it because darn it, maybe this will really help
yeah,
someone know that they're, not alone, but also too, like, you're not imagining it. Like, and I've often had people tell me, oh, well, I have tons of friends and family, or I'm married and I'm still lonely. And I'm just like, okay, your lonely is not like my lonely. So let's not compare loneliness. Don't compare it. Um, but also too, what I have realized is it's okay to reach out to friends. Like, I have like reached out and been like, hey, I'm not feeling, I'm not feeling it right now. I'm upset. I'm this, and it's sad that I was like shocked at how beautifully supportive and open they were, and recognizing that I just need to just get it off my chest. I don't want any advice, and they take the time to really be present with me, and that has surprised me.
yeah,
So that does, like you said, that does help because there is a community in the cancer space, and we're all like bonded so deeply, so immediately because of our cancer experiences, and then specifically in the AYA community. And then when you, like me, have aged out of the AYA community, it does feel weird because no one really addresses that gap because I'm still young. But I'm now like a little too I'm
yeah.
older. Yeah, I'm a little older because I'm at a different phase in my life, but I'm not all the way at that other end of the spectrum, though internally it feels like I'm 800. Yes.
I remember you saying that. Yeah, it's it really is one of my personal goals is to talk about the things we don't talk about.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the whole premise of this podcast. There are so many topics, and I think mortality and death is one of them that's really difficult. And I mean, I remember talking to so many patients, and you just can't have that conversation. I think it is absolutely one of my goals. Sorry, selfish experiment happening on you. I apologize, but I appreciate you being a willing participant.
Well, I mean, I remember you had asked some moments ago about like cultural differences. Like in your culture, what do you think about death? A lot of times, if we say it out loud, if we speak it, then that means it's going to happen. And and I'm all like, okay, but if we don't speak about it and acknowledge that, I mean, everyone at one point this is going to happen. And so when I talk about it, I don't feel like I am going to bring it, to me, or bring it on my mother. I'm not superstitious like that,
Yes.
but I'm also a realist, and you know, and I think too, as you start to see your parents, or whoever else in your family, like when they start to physically look older, and you're seeing the physical toll that their cancer or other illness is taking on them, that's when you really start to feel that anticipatory grief. That's when you really want to start talking about death. That's when you really want to start, like, I got to find out as much about them as I can because they're not going to be here.
Yeah. No, it's I fully relate.
Yeah.
I very much relate. I've had maybe three people, not that many, three or four people who are kind of in that like last non-cancer, last decade, right? Like the
Mm-hmm.
and it's funny, like when they talk about the things that occupy their mind and they share it, I often they're like, you wouldn't relate to that. And I just sit there, I'm like, actually, I really do relate to that because I'm a cancer survivor, definitely dealt with most of the things you are talking about right now. And
Mm-hmm.
it's an interesting thing that I think happens with survivors is that you kind of accelerate in a certain dimension of life. So it almost, I sometimes feels like we've accelerated, right? Like there's this acceleration that happens emotionally. But when it comes to like peers who are non-survivors,
Mm-hmm.
there is a disconnect because at least for me emotionally sometimes I feel like I'm 90 or 80 or like the things that occupy my mind are not things that occupy a 30-year-old's mind usually.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting shift, and I can see how you having like accelerated to almost being a peer of your mom, but now it's almost like you're going backwards. It's almost like you're decelerating in some way
Yeah.
because your mom is there and you're not. And it's just, I can see how hard it is.
And again, it's like, there's one thing I know is, and that I will always be able to say is that the love is there, the respect is there, and I I do feel that when people get a cancer diagnosis, it forces you to grow up mentally and emotionally. Like, I mean, you, and then when you have friends that are dying in the cancer space too, like, it's just like this vicious cycle, and it's always like so many at like one time. It's like just when you're like okay, and then you're trying to focus on like your parents or whatever, and then another friend dies, so you're constantly witnessing it and going to funerals virtually or in person for people that,
Yeah.
again, I don't really know them that well, but darn it, they had an impact on my life.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, it's going to be like quadruple that when it's my mother.
Yeah. Oh my God. Hmm. Oh,
I
okay.
know. I
Yeah.
know.
Hard topics. As usual, by the way, we have run like completely run through the clock. I truly appreciate you being willing to talk about it. I really, really genuinely appreciate it. And I think that there are going to be a lot of people who will appreciate it as well. So thank you so much.
Well,
As
thank
a,
you.
as a wrap up, um, what is your favorite memory of your mom from the last 6 months?
Oh, from the last 6 months. Uh, so I would say it's been really cute. I adopted a cat, another cat, after my 20-year-old Nathan Edgar passed away last year. I ended up adopting another cat. Her name is Phoebe Nell. And my mother has just been so cute. It's like, because she's never had a granddaughter before, like she had the grandson. Now she's got the granddaughter, and she is just so adorable with Phoebe. And like, she's always like, "How is she doing? Okay, I've got a gift for her." I'm like, "Stop buying her stuff!" Like, it is hilarious, and it's so precious that it that she makes me feel like it's like my child. And she's like, "I'm a grandkid," and she tells everyone about it. And so that's been like really my favorite thing, is how excited she is for little Phoebe.
Ah, I'm so glad. Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. We're ending on a high note.
Yes, yes.
Thank you, Dr. Chase, for being a grandma to Phoebe. Thank you,
But
Megan Blair. I appreciate you.
I appreciate you. Thanks for this honest conversation.
This podcast, show notes, and newsletter is for general informational purposes only and does not constitute the practice of medicine, nursing, or other professional healthcare services, including the giving of medical advice, and no doctor patient relationship is formed. The use of information on this podcast or any materials linked from this blog is at the user's own risk. The opinions of the speakers are their own and do not represent the opinions of organizations they're affiliated with, nor do they reflect the opinions of Manta Cares Inc. or Manta Cares' sponsors.